There's conflict theory that talks about internal and external actor importance in understanding how conflicts evolve. Gets me into a point of questioning within that kind of a structure where there are a lot of different actors and a lot of different points of departure to be concerned with, and social structure being influencing the process. How do human beings see their own way of making decisions, particularly when they have to find themselves in a completely different social structure when they move out of their home countries? When we say social structure, we mean that all the patterned relationships, right? There are networks of people, organizations, the way institutions run, how the status of people are divided or understood within a particular society. All of those things change when you move to a new setting because they have a different set of all those things about networks and institutions, organizations, and the pattern ways that the society is running. Then how are we going to understand human beings' decision-making capacity? And that's what agency is concerned about. And for that, I do find Emir Bayer and Misch theorizing about agency very powerful. I knew that I wanted to look into people's decision-making capacity and how they make their life continue within those decisions, right? And then I wanted to investigate agency when I started. But as I was in the field, and the field was unfolding in front of my eyes, and when I was investigating the data and sorting the data and analyzing it, I realized this important thing about people always going back and forth between their past and today, and sometimes the unclearness of the future, and talking about future that way. So there is this constant temporality in their narratives, and also along with that there is a continuous back and forth with the existing receiving society social structure, the space, which is Turkey and Gaziantep in my particular research case, and then Syria, wherever they came from, Syria. And then this space and time kept emerging. And then I was reading now this is an inductive research, right? When you are looking in what you are seeing from the field and trying to come up with a theoretical explanation for that, that's a perfect example of induction. Because I didn't go to field to sort of test a theory that already was in my mind to see if it actually existed. That's deduction, right? So then inductively, when I went there, I knew sort of, right, and it's as a general idea that I wanted to look into, as qualitative research often requires, because you have to have a plan. I wanted to see how people made decisions within this complex set of relationships when they are moving from one place to another. What I didn't know is that this emergence of the space and time in their own explanations about their decisions about children, right? Whether to put their children in Arabic schools or Turkish-speaking schools, whether they should plan to go to a different country or stay in the border with the hopes of being the first people to go back home when it was suitable. All kinds of decisions were tied into the time and space. And then when I went back to the literature to see what kinds of agency writings were available to me, Emir Bayer and Misch article surfaced as having great explanatory power. And I'm hoping that this also gives you some sort of a guidance, right? How to think the process of integrating data findings when you start your analysis. Okay, so then what is agency in terms of Amy Bayer and Misch study? It's from 1998. You can see the citation in the citation sections, and also it should be appearing now in your screen. So then they say that there are temporally constructed engagements by actors in different structural environments. Right? There is a temporal relational context, which I really like, of action. Relationality is very important because we do really need to understand the context, which automatically is how I'm already looking at the studies that I'm conducting. So then there is an interplay of habit, imagination, and judgment. That's what they are telling us. And they are producing, reproducing, and transforming these structures in an interactive response to problems posed by changing historical situations. So then, as things evolve and nothing is static, right, people's already existing imagination and about their future, those are going to be coming to make a judgment for the present to decide how to act. So then they do call this as caudal triad of agency. And they tell you that there is iteration, that's habit. There are things we already have done and we continue to be doing. For example, you did see in Syrians certain habits that they actually brought from home naturally, and they try to reiterate that, not to change that. The food they're eating, the time frame that they are gathering around the table if they are with their families, where they are shopping, right, to find those kinds of similarities. And all that. And then the family structure, if it is possible. And then there are some things that are not going to be able to be habitually in a patterned way of doing because things are changing. Women that I talked, widows particularly, who lost their husbands in the war, became the head of the household. So there is no iteration there because you are changing the habits of the family and the roles that are part of your every day now. And then the second one is the projectivity, which is that you have a purpose, you have goals that you are hoping to achieve, you are imagining a possibility of future trajectories based on these hopes, desires, and also fears, right? It's not just only positive, but we do make decisions of fearing something happening, so then we would change that trajectory for us, or we hope something will happen and then we try to do things to manage or achieve that outcome that we are hoping. That is for the future. I want you to realize this. It's an important thing. And then based on those past habits and understandings and repetitive practices that you have and the future projections, you have a practical evaluation. That's your third one, right? And then that's the moment that you are creating the action, right? You are deliberating the action in the evolving situation. So this is ongoing and changing, of course. I do have this figure that I sort of try to create about past, present, and future. And what I'm trying to be telling you here is that when we are thinking, right, in our normal circumstances and conditions of our life, there is a linearity of time. There is past, there is present, and there is future. They take a lot of things from me. If you are interested to temporality, I do suggest it's a very rich reading as well indeed. And it tells you that it's much more complex than that. Nothing is linear about time. And there are a lot of complexities. For example, when we are standing right now here, we are constantly thinking about what has happened in the past, or what we are wishing to happen in the future, or what we see that cannot happen as we hoped in the future anymore. And then the present is all tied into and intertwined with all of these things from past and future, right? And then that's what's so capturing about this definition of agency, showing you that you formulated past, future, and then present. I do have another video, you can find it in the link, that what happens, the connection and disconnection between the past, future, and present, when you are in the present moment. Connections could make it stronger for people's functioning and making choices. They become resilient to continue, and there is a range of possibilities between this disconnect of the past and the future. If you are stuck in the past, if you are stuck in only thinking about the future without the articulation of past and present, then there are different outcomes of that, ranging from, as I said, from resilience to numbness to depression. So you can check that from that video particularly. It is one of the chapters in the book as well. I came to this, as I said, through listening the narratives of the people who were thrown into being a refugee. I'm actually continuously telling you this because I want you to remember, nobody is a refugee. This is a title that we are imposing on individuals, and they have to cope with this title and identity and the status that is given in the society, which is a majority of the time burdensome, right? And it doesn't tell much about their other kinds of identities, and it does create eventually connotations that are othering. And you are seeing this increased level of othering of people who are titled as refugees. We all have spatial and temporal, right? Space and time happens in all our lives. Even if we are born, raised, and die in the same place, and we have emplaced experiences, that means we have never moved out, right? So that sort of sedentary way of existing, if there is such a thing. But that kind of experience also has time in it, and you are living in that particular space and particular time frame, your life, which affects you. If you have been living in the same country ever since you were born, and there has been a conflict or a war either within that country or in the neighboring country, that time frame changes your experiences and how you see the world, of course. So we are not going to be excluding the people who are in place, of course. But what I have realized when I was looking at the experiences of refugees is that space and time is much more complex than an emplaced experience, in the sense that past, future, and present connections are fragile or sometimes disconnected or fractured, if that's the right word, because you are taken out of your country and there are a lot of unknowns, right? Automatically you are being made, you don't know if you are going to have acquire a citizenship, you don't know if you can have a job, you don't know the conditions, the travel restrictions can change when you're making a plan. So then there are a lot of things about plans that you can make about future becoming very complex. And then also there is the complexity of past, because past has ruptured and cut suddenly. When we are living, of course, when we are living a life in an emplaced place, past is behind us, but we carry a lot of things with it and without being cut from it. And so then we are integrating all those and reiterating all those practices that come from our earlier parts of our life, even sometimes from our parents and grandparents. That's why we say, why are you doing it? Well, my parents were doing it, and my grandparents were doing it, and my great-grandparents doing it, right? So that's a reiteration example for us. We do all those things continuously without any kind of break in the practice. But for the refugees, which was like sort of stayed with me. Some parts of, I'm sure that there are multiple experiences and cultural practices within Syria as well. This particular cultural group, a member of this group said, we eat very late in Syria, right? So lunch is around like 4 p.m. or something. And then she says, like, for me, life was 4 p.m. because we gathered, all of us, together as a family, and it was a conversation and sharing of our day, of our things that happened to us, and all of those kinds of things. So then, even that, right, when you are not able to do that because your family is not there, every member of your family is someplace else, there are a lot of scattered around family members in different places, so then you are not able to even reiterate your lunch habit, which is a big deal, right? And your family practices, that is attached to that, of course. That's what we mean by that. So then this breaking of habit creates a lot of complications and complex ways of understanding your present moment because of this displacement that you are experiencing. So then your relationality to time shifts as well. How you understand the past, how you understand the future is going to be quite different. While relational pragmatics analyzes multiple temporalities of past, future, and present within the life course, that's another dimension that I like to talk about. This dimension focuses on where do we make the decisions, so that, in other words, the past and the future and the present are all within the life course. As long as we exist, we make decisions. That's why this is a life course understanding of agency. So then the temporality operates in multiple ways when we are looking at the refugee experiences, and it could go beyond life course. Particularly, I first realized this and then looked at it further, of course, in my analysis, that for pious people, I had a considerable number of pious widows a set of people, around 12, 13, somewhere at that number, that I was able to talk to widows, and I have a paper about it, because they were a very specific group that had a subcultural outcomes, right? So they were concerned about the life course, and I was looking at how they are deciding how to approach life, what to do with, how to make the decisions, but also they continuously had a relationship with past that was not within the life course. They were talking about what I call, it's a locked in and anchored past, which I call scriptural, right, past. They are talking about the prophetic times, or what the Quran says according to the book. That's what we are going to be doing. So then what you are taking as your departure point, past, could be beyond life course, which creates a lot of complex ways for us to be understanding human agency in the lived experience. And then further I realized it's not just the piety that creates that. If a person is not religious at all and they live very secular life, this beyond this time future comes with not only the future of themselves, but when they're talking about their children or future generations, the Syria in the future, even if I'm not there, the future generations, you are talking about a future that does not include you, but you are making decisions today for that beyond the life course time frame, which changes our understanding of what drives people in terms of understanding of the rationality, if that's the word, of their choices, or what encourages them to act in this way or that way. So this is a very important thing for us to be cautious about and know what drives people to make their decisions. So this part concludes my agency explanations. In the next video, de-essentializing refugees will continue with chapter 3, formation of identities in the conflict. In this chapter, we will look at concepts like multi-party conflict complexes and examine further internationally intertwined nature of the conflict and the parties to it in international scale, along with perceptions of ascribed identities. Please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. If you benefited from the video, like it, share it, and turn on the bell for notifications for the following videos. See you soon.